What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Many different games have areas and locations, either leaked or found in the game files. Some might be accessible through various tools or maybe mods, while others are already in the game but simply locked from player access due to them simply not being finished, unreleased, or really just any other reason of that nature. And today I wanted to take a look at some hidden areas in old school RuneScape that exist in the game but are not accessible by players. This isn't to say that these areas will never be accessible. They could definitely be open to the public in the future, or may even just be made for the Jagex moderators for some sort of purpose. There's definitely quite a few locations in today's video that probably will get released to the game eventually though. I think it's always cool to take a look at stuff in the game that isn't readily available yet, and trying to uncover their purpose is always a fun challenge. So if you enjoyed today's video, definitely hit that like button or let us know in the comments section below, and be sure to subscribe for some more videos. So first up on our list, we have the iconic location of Prifddinas. Located north of Arendar is a closed-off area to the player, but is often speculated by the community to be a part of a future event in the ElfQuest series, and Jagex has mentioned quite a few times that they probably will release a version of Prifddinas to old school RuneScape in the future. Despite being inaccessible in old school RuneScape today, it is actually accessible in RuneScape 3, however there does exist a version of Prifddinas coded into the game in old school RuneScape, and it was showcased by JMods in one of the videos that they uploaded to their YouTube channel. The area is surrounded by walls made from elven crystal and is said to be the first RuneScape city ever built before the Great God Wars. And there was actually a time when this place was accessible in old school RuneScape, and that was during the first birthday event. It's pretty iconic and most likely plays back to the lore suggesting it to be the first city ever built. And although it's now inaccessible, it does still exist in the game today. I gotta say the location and setting of Prifddinas is super cool. Jagex could most definitely use this location again in the future to play a huge role in the Elf series. It would be super cool for them to remake it in the old school style with like a master quest attached to it or some kind of launch event, you know. It's definitely something that I'm looking forward to in the future for sure. Next up we have Wester Island. This island is a small egg-shaped island found in the Western Sea. It was first spotted on the official world map that was released at the same time as the Chambers of Xeric as an Easter egg. This was later revealed to be the location for the 2017 Easter event. At the moment, players cannot access the island, but it can still be seen in-game using the world map. What's interesting is that this island was not reopened during the 2018 Easter event, but it does still remain on the world map today. This might be kind of a recurring theme throughout our list, you know, areas that were once accessible before and aren't available today, or things that once existed in the game that got removed, but are actually still present in the game world itself. I'm kind of curious as to why Jagex chooses to keep them like this instead of completely removing the files from the game itself. However, it's probably for ease of access to maybe any previously created content in case they decide to just re-release them or recreate them in the future. Next up on our list, we have the Sailing Islands. For April Fools in 2014, RuneScape added a new skill exclusively for sailing. This allowed players to create sailboats to use to sail to unknown islands that still exist in the game today. The maximum sailing level was 20, and if you got more than 5,000 experience in the skill, then you would get reset back to level 1 and get an error in your chat box. Another thing to note is that this content of sailing was finished and actually developed. It does technically still exist in the game. It's simply just not accessible anymore. But we've still seen quite a few bits and pieces that were originally intended to be a part of the design of the sailing skill, Fossil Island most notably being one that was later introduced as a standalone piece of content. Next up, we're taking a look at a couple more inaccessible areas that exist in the game. However, I wanted to note that the rest of these were found using the Oculus Orb item in-game. This is an item that was specifically given to content creators to allow players to have total control over the camera to like record spectator angles and stuff like that. And using the orb, a lot of people found some really cool stuff that exists in the game that you can't access by normal means, but it's still cool to kind of just take a look at. First of which is something that exists east of the Soul Altar. We can see some sort of monument with champion statues around, and more interestingly, a trapdoor right in the middle. There isn't too much to really analyze about this location, but it's definitely interesting to think about what sort of content could come out of this area in the future, if at all. Considering there's a trapdoor set up in the center though, it's safe to assume that maybe there's some sort of plan to maybe use it for a piece of content like a dungeon or some kind of underground thing in the future, maybe a quest. Next, there's an underwater area that was found as originally removed content from the game. Players would have actually navigated this underwater area if they had jumped off the ice bridge that led to Zamorak. It was apparently removed at the last second, and instead they had players just swim directly to the area without any sort of jump in between. Looking at the picture, we can see some really amazing work here actually, even if it's not fully developed. I mean, the idea of this dark skull themed water area that players would have had to kind of make their way through in order to continue to Zamorak is really cool and actually pretty awesome. I'm interested as to why it was removed and what caused them to make the choice. You know, maybe they found the journey hard enough as it is, or maybe the original concept didn't work out as they kind of intended. Regardless, it's a pretty cool area that still exists in the game that isn't accessible to any of us, and seems that it might never be, considering it was canceled content for something that exists in the game today. You know, earlier in this video we talked about Fossil Island, so heading northeast of Fossil Island, we have a little island that lays reference to the movie Castaway. This is definitely apparent as you can see the small boat wreckage and the floating wood boxes around in the water. There's also a campfire right in the middle as well. However, cleverly pointed out, the shape of the island on the map references a real-life island that goes by the name of Stroroya, which is an island in Svalbard. I'm honestly not too sure why an inaccessible area like this would be added near Fossil Island. Maybe it's a play on the location they're basing the setting on. I'm not all too sure, but it's still pretty cool information nonetheless. Next up, we have a hidden floor that exists underneath the Chasm of Fire. Painted onto the entire floor is wording that reads, well, you guessed it, Chasm of Fire. This is, of course, inaccessible for obvious reasons and exists below the floor, and it's pretty much always going to stay that way. It's more than likely that this print underneath the actual area was just placed there during development by one of the programmers or designers to kind of just keep track of the design or help mark something for work. It is, however, written in red just perfectly to fit the theme of the area. Something else found which is kind of interesting is this pathway littered with rocks and a cave entrance. It was located southwest of Mount Kita Mortum. Now this is a pretty cool looking area. The water setting with the enormous cave surrounded by rocks really gives this great look and kind of inspires this sense of adventure. Of course, this is an inaccessible area to us players, but I would love to see Jagex use this place for maybe a future event or quest. You know, the cave itself definitely looks like it has a lot of potential to be something that could be really awesome. I mean, hey, maybe it'll get released with the Kebos Lowlands update coming in the future. Next up, we have what's probably my personal favorite location on today's video, and it's the lair for the old King Black Dragon from way back in the day of RuneScape Classic, which can be found next to the Temple of Ikov area. Even cooler, according to Jagex developer Mod Ash, he said that if a player were to access this area somehow, they would likely still find the King Black Dragon inhabiting the lair. Now this will obviously probably never be re-accessible to players, at least intentionally, as it's kind of just removed content, but it's definitely really cool that this old lair was left in the game instead of being removed when they actually updated it. Even cooler is how they just left the KBD in the lair. It would be pretty funny if Jagex let players go back in there just for nostalgia's sake and see the KBD there once again. And next up we have something that's particularly peculiar. Southeast of the Library Historical Archive, there's actually another room which is filled with jail cells and a coffin in the center. Now I'm not entirely sure what this is doing here or its purpose really, but what we do know is that it's inaccessible to the players and also just looks really cool. The black and gray floor gives off a strong darkness vibe, and to top it off, the pattern in the floor centers the coffin. Empty jail cells with bones and a crystal in the back sets this up to be a great quest or event location in the future. This is something I could definitely see Jagex utilizing in the future, and it's definitely possible that we might just end up seeing something made out of it, which could be pretty fun. Anyway, that's just about going to cover all the hidden locations and areas that you can't access in old school RuneScape that I was able to find. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I certainly had a lot of fun putting this one together. I just think it's kind of cool to take a look at all these hidden bits and pieces of different parts of the game. If you enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this one in the future. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.